Let's quickly talk about emergencies that could face in our communities or in our masajid. I have classified it into internal or external emergencies. Internal basically are those emergencies that arise from within. So that these again could be medical or non-medical emergencies. Medical emergencies, as we all know, could be a sudden cardiac death, or as we call it, cardiopulmonary arrest. It could be a seizure, it could be bleeding, it could be somebody falling and breaking a leg, God forbid, or any other kind. So that's one of the issues that we need to be prepared in our masajid. The non-medical emergencies could be a fire inside a masjid, God forbid, flooding, gas leaks, acts of violence inside the masjid from one of the people, and so on and so forth. And the others would be from outside. When we're talking about the external sources of emergency or disastrous situation, it could be natural, which would include tornado, hurricanes, storms, flooding, earthquakes, so on and so forth, and then man-made, which would be terrorism. And we have recently seen those. We have recently seen in Isaac when it hit the Louisiana, and the second time in the last 6-7 years, there is a massive disaster going on. Happy to report that during the first Katrina problem, Imana volunteers were there to help the people out. We are still not sure how much the damage is, how bad the things are over there, but that again is a place for us to be if there's a need for it. Hurricanes, tornadoes, most of the states in this country can be exposed to that, and we need to be ready for those. Man-made emergencies, of course, terrorism. Unfortunately, nowadays, there's no safe place. I'm pretty sure you all have heard the act of terrorism that happened in Wisconsin in this temple for Sikhs. Similar acts have happened in masajid and other places of worship, and I think as a community we need to be ready and prepared to deal with those emergencies. Now, historically, if you really look at the concept of masjid, it was not just a prayer place, it was a place for all important events that happen in a society or a community. And I think we see that, alhamdulillah, happening in our masajid now, that a lot of Islamic schools are associated with masjid. There are a lot of community events happening in masjid, and alhamdulillah, they are really progressing. I think one thing that I see lacking is the preparedness for emergencies. So how do we do this? I think it is really important to prepare to start with a policy and a procedure. Now this is a little technical thing to do. It cannot be done by lay people like me. You need lawyers and you need people who are expert in this field. I have gotten some samples from my local hospital, which I'm developing for my own masjid. I will be glad to share with you if you want a copy of that. I won't be distributing here, but my email address is there, which is muhammadnadimullah@yahoo.com. If you email me, I'll be glad to send you a copy. Now, these should be classified. These should be separate for each disaster. You cannot have just one disaster policy. You need a policy for, God forbid, fire. You need a policy for earthquake. You need a policy for hurricane. You need a policy for tornado warnings as well as watches. So, they are separate policies. And as I said, after the lecture, if anybody wants to see, I have that with me, the copies, and I'll be glad to share it with you. So the first step is to get a policy on all the disasters that are possible and maintain that on file in your masjid. It is really, really important from a lot of issues. I don't want to go into details, starting from litigations and protecting yourself and so on and so forth. So we will start by talking about medical emergencies. This is the internal emergency, then the part that deals with the medical aspect in a school or in a masjid, and what is the protocol for action, BLS and AED training and equipment and information. I'll be providing this in a little bit detail Again, this whole series of slides will be available to anybody who wants it through the Imana website. So, and again, you could email me directly. I'll be glad to provide this to you. This policy and protocol that I will be discussing for the medical emergencies is something that I have distributed in Michigan for several masajid, and alhamdulillah that has been very well accepted. So this is something that I'll be discussing today, but what we have done in our masjid is made several copies of these, and posted in most of the important bigger rooms of the masjid. So people know, they keep on reading it so they understand what the protocol is. And then we discussed that during a Jummah. We kind of went through the details, and I plan to do that maybe twice a year. So, excuse me, if there is a medical emergency, first of all, the first person who sees or witnesses this emergency should announce it loud and clear. I have a medical emergency. That's the keywords that you do it. And if you have not gotten the attention or the help needed, you repeat that. I have a medical emergency. If the person is awake, the person who has fallen down or whatever the problem is going through, if the person is awake and able to talk, you need to get permission to move him or her to the back of the masjid. Obviously, if it happens in the first saf, you don't want to, during a namaz, you don't want to disrupt it. You ask them, can I help you move to the back? And then you ask for a medical professional to help for future course of action. So if a person is awake, you ask them if you could move them into the back, and when you get there, you ask for a medical person, and that medical person can then take over. Inform the family if he or she allows it. Again, you need to get a consent to inform the family. And please make sure that you do those crossing the T's and dotting the I's, because you don't want to be litigated. And again, this could be my obsession compulsion, but I think that's the way it should go. If the person is unconscious and not responding to you, usually if somebody falls, you say, are you okay? Are you okay? If you know the name, you take their name. And if they're not responding to you, that's a real medical emergency. If they are seizing, if they are bleeding heavily, etc., the first thing you do is to ask someone to call 911 or immediate medical police help right away. That's the first thing you do. Ask for a medical professional to help immediately, and you announce, I need a medical professional here, please. And if you do not get a response, you repeat it. Lay the person on the back with arms and legs straight, and remove from the harm's way if needed. If there's a fire, if there is some other danger, you move them. If the person has fallen and if their neck is bent, do not try to fix that. You just lay them down. If possible, correct their position of the arms and legs. If they have vomited or are bleeding from the nose or the mouth, the important thing is to prevent this from going into the lungs, or what we call in medical terms, aspiration, because that would be dangerous and could be fatal. So what you do is lay them on their side with their lower arms stretched up and their mouth facing down. So what you're doing is, so if a person is on the left side, you straighten this arm up, and then you have their face turned downwards towards the ground. So if they vomit something, it would go on the ground and not into the lungs. It's really important to do that. While you're doing that, I mean, these things are not one after the other. These things should be done simultaneously. That's why it's really important to have drills and marks of these. You are looking for a medical alert bracelet or a necklace. People wear that. I'm a diabetic. I'm this or that. You might be able to direct your therapy better if you know what the medical problems are. And if you see that, give it to a medical professional, a doctor or a nurse or any other medical professional if they are in the area. Clear the area around around the person. That's something that's really important. In our cultures, we are very caring people, and everybody wants to know what's going on. So they will gather around, and that will block the circulation of air and create a lot of problems. It's really important that we are not aggregating around the person who's dealing with a medical emergency. And you inform the family if you have an emergency number. If the person is unconscious, you do not need a permission. You can act in good faith and inform the family if the number is available. Now, this is the position of recovery when somebody has passed out, if they're bleeding or if they're vomiting. If you have gotten the help needed, announce that you do not need further help. If the medical person is there, things are okay, situation is under control, you say, thank you very much, I have enough help. Now this could be going on while the prayer is going on, and that's okay. Again, we have cleared it with imams. They said this is important, that you could announce the prayer will continue. When you have enough help, you announce loudly, and you can finish your prayer later on, but it's okay to break your prayer at that time. If further help is needed, you announce once again, and you are specific now. You're saying, I still need 911 call, or I need a doctor, or I need a nurse, or whatever you need. Do not do anything else unless you are a trained medical professional. So you don't try to thump on the heart or start breathing and this and that until and unless you are trained to do that. So where do we go from here? Dr. Ismail Meher, he's a wonderful gentleman. I learned from everybody and everywhere. So a few days ago, on actually Chandrat, he was in Michigan, and he said something that really changed the way I think. And he said that we all see problems, we all see disasters, we see issues around us, and we say, yeah, there is a problem, I wish I could do something about it. Or you will say, yes, the help is needed here, and then you forget about it. Or some of us, real good ones, will make some donation, or we talk to a couple people. What he suggested is, no, that's not enough for us. As Muslims, it is not enough. We need to take the step, and we need to take the step now. So I'm requesting everyone here, when we go back home, we start thinking about these things. And we talk to our imam, and we talk to our administrator, and we give them some ideas. You can have a copy of this and give it to them. So we form a group of designated individuals, create and publicize the policy of medical emergency, which is already there. You're welcome to borrow it. Disaster management, which again I could provide you a copy with, and continued education, and so on and so forth. We meet periodically to go over the policy and relearn it and re-emphasize the important things to do. A really important thing that I cannot really stress enough, and if you take only 1 point home today, I would request this be the thing you take home, which is, unfortunately, in our massages, we park everywhere but the legal parking. We are all over the place. We are on the grass, in the lawn, and in the neighbor's yard, and so on and so forth. And just think about it. If there is a medical emergency, and if your loved one is going through that, they are having a big problem, they need medical help. Somebody calls for 911. Ambulance is there, cannot come to the masjid because there is no way they could drive into the masjid to the gate or the door because the parking is so bad. And if for that reason you lose that person, that would be a big, big disaster. So when you go home and if you see that parking which is done bad, please don't say, yeah, this is bad. Oh, yeah, something needs to be done about it. Oh, yeah, maybe I'll talk to somebody. Please, that very day, go and talk to your imam.